have a secret weapon with Sam Calvito, I'm telling you. I'm trying to increase my red blood cell count in my hematocrit.
Is TJ Dillashaw the greatest competitor you've ever seen in MMA?
I felt better than I've ever felt in my entire life.
One of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, TJ Dillashaw!
Oh! Big shot trying to finish!
Dillashaw trying to finish this fight! That's it!
Still that one right. He's in trouble! TJ Dillashaw remains the UFC!
There is no question as to who is the king of the bantamweights, and you might be looking at the greatest 135-pound fighter of all time.
That's it, best bantamweight of all time. Here, right now.
This is pretty big. TJ Dillashaw, of course, your former UFC bantamweight champion, has accepted a 2-year sanction from USADA after testing positive for a prohibited substance. Dillashaw, 33, tested positive for EPO.
TJ Dillashaw tested positive for injectable EPO, which is a serious performance-enhancing substance, but just it taints his legacy. It just does. There's no way around it. When you get caught cheating, which is this stuff is, there's no way it's not cheating.
To risk it all, you know, to know that if you take an EPO, there's a 2-year ban. Target is your legacy, as Dan Hardy said in his podcast, as a martial artist and as a human being.
It's disgusting, is what it is. You can't just say it's very bad. It's downright disgusting.
I mean, for his legacy.
It's what legacy?
Yeah.
What fucking legacy? What would we don't know what he could have done.
I messed up. I'm having a hard time trying to forgive myself for this, which I should have a hard time. I should have a hard time forgiving myself. I understand criticism and scrutiny coming my way, but what I really feel bad about is any kind of bad light I'm bringing on my coaches, my family, my teammates. They had no involvement in this, and I feel the worst for them. You know, I got a 15-month-old son that I want to be a role model for.
Arguably the best bantamweight in UFC history, TJ Dillashaw won 5 world titles between 2014 and 2018. After demolishing his former teammate Cody Garbrandt in devastating fashion at UFC 227, TJ Dillashaw found himself with a choice: stay put and defend the bantamweight throne, the one he had fought so hard to occupy for a second time, or aim for something greater and a chance to put his name alongside legends of the sport, such as McGregor, St. Pierre and Cormier. A defining factor for TJ amongst those names was that TJ would be moving down a division, not up, in his quest for double champ status. Not only did he have a considerable task before him in the form of his opponent Henry Cejudo, but he also had to deconstruct his bantamweight frame and rebuild it 10 pounds lighter. Once TJ decided to chase greatness, many questions arose about the viability of this weight class move. TJ was already an extremely lean bantamweight, so the path ahead of him would be an extreme one, and one that he would never fully return from. The moment TJ signed his contract, his path lay before him: lose 29 pounds in 12 weeks. On the last weekend of November in 2018, TJ was at his normal walk-around weight, 154 pounds at approximately 8% body fat. Through a combination of calorie restriction, around 1600 calories a day, and additional cardio sessions, TJ starts to drop body weight.
I'm running 6 days a week in the mornings, and I'm also riding the bike at night, as well as 2 or 3 practices a day. So the workload was insane. 5, 4. And that's why I got my body down to 4% body fat and looked the way that I did.
Bear in mind that TJ's basal metabolic rate is approximately 1500 calories a day. This is the amount of calories your body requires to perform basic life-sustaining functions like keeping your heart beating, breathing, and circulation. After the first 2 weeks, he would unsurprisingly start to have doubts.
So I knew it was going to be hard, don't get me wrong. I knew there'd be days I'd be hungry. I knew there'd be days I'd be tired. And that was to be expected. But I didn't realize physically how tough it was actually going to be on me and on my body. I'd say about halfway through, about 6 weeks out, is when I really realized I had a problem. That I realized that I didn't know if this was actually going to be doable.
But he pushed through despite the worries from those around him. TJ was down to 139 pounds on December 29. This weight was more or less maintained throughout January. On the 4th of January, he was 138 pounds. After an initial water load, TJ then starts his fight week cut at 140 pounds on January 15th. Alongside the dietary restriction, TJ starts to shift water weight through a combination of sauna use, sweatsuits, and low intensity cardiovascular work. On January 16th, TJ is down to 134.6 pounds. January 17th is the day before the weigh-in, where TJ would lose just under 7% of his own body weight. At this point, TJ would have little to no glycogen stored in his body. Any undigested fiber in the gut would be minimal, so this 7% would predominantly be through body water loss. Generally, you can lose between 2 and 5% in the 24 hours before a weigh-in, so 7% is really pushing the limit. Following a weight cut of this magnitude, it's highly unlikely that hydration status would be fully recovered going into the fight. In fact, it's highly likely that TJ's performance would be significantly impaired on fight night. Plus, there is research to suggest that this severity of TJ's weight cut may have left him at increased risk of getting knocked out. After hours of dehydration, TJ gets down to 125.6 pounds at the turn of midnight.
So I went to sleep 1.3 pounds over, and I floated that. I actually took a shit the morning of weigh-ins, which is insane. That never happens. Like, my body was still working. I wanted to make the weight the night before because obviously I hadn't made 125s. I didn't want to have to wake up in the morning and see what my body was going to do and if it was going to give me that extra water. But I made weight super easy, man. Like,
he then heads back to his hotel room to get some sleep before the 9 AM weigh-in. At weigh-ins the next morning, TJ steps on the scale at 124.6 pounds.
Here's TJ Dillashaw, the reigning defending UFC bantamweight champion, first to show up, first on the scale. I think he wants to shut everyone up. I think he wants to send a message to Henry Cejudo that he's going to make this weight. Let's see what happens.
He just wants something to drink.
That too. 124.6 for TJ Dillashaw. He makes weight. He is good to go.
His glycogen replenishment and rehydration starts immediately, and you can see the difference it's already made come the ceremonial weigh-ins later that day, although there is a noticeable difference from his previous 135-pound weigh-in. With this level of depletion, the body is primed to regain body weight, primarily through fluids and carbohydrate. Typically, you could expect regains of around 10% body weight in professional athletes. From the official weigh-in through to fight night, TJ packs on an additional 20% of his body weight, back up to 149 pounds.
I walked out 2 pounds heavier for this fight than I did my last Cody fight.
What did you walk out to?
Before I started warming up, I weighed 149.
What?
Yes, and I felt great. I didn't feel bloated, didn't feel nothing.
Wait a minute. You went from 125 to 149.
Yeah. I was a glycogen battery. I was ready to fucking go. I couldn't get tired before the fight when I was warming up in the back. I seriously, I've never felt better than this before a fight. Like, my mood, my energy levels, like me hitting mitts with Dwayne in the back warming up. I was feeling smooth. I was feeling good. I remember even walking out in the cage and everything felt too good. Almost too. I remember looking over Dwayne, smiling at him. I felt awesome.
This is a monstrous weight regain and shows just how depleted TJ was. Weight regain after rapid weight loss can be a predictor of fight success, but that wouldn't hold true for Dillashaw's pursuit of the 125-pound title.
At 32 seconds of the very first round, declaring the winner by TKO.
It sucks, man. It sucks when something's taken from you, not when you're actually beat. I would love to get beat. Hey, congrats to Henry Cejudo. Good job, but you didn't beat me. fight only lasted 30 seconds. A title fight. It's a champ versus champ fight. And you're going to stop the fight like that? I'm in on a single leg. He says, hey, show me something. I said, I'm okay. I'm on a single leg in a scramble. He stops punching. He's defending a single leg, and you're going to stop the fight? If I'm going to lose, I want to lose. I want to lose if I'm going to lose. Look, congratulations, Henry Cejudo. Awesome. Great job, man. Awesome. But you did not win. You did not win this fight. I got clipped, hardly clipped behind the ear. And then a grown man's going to be shoving you. Of course, you're going to be in a scramble. I worked my ass off 12 weeks to get here, to be stolen from me in 30 seconds.
Although the outcome of the fight was not a successful one, the weight cut was. So who helped TJ in this extreme, albeit successful weight cut?
With Sam Calavita, I could be walking around 165 pounds with 6% body fat. Like
Really?
100%. Like this guy, man, he can stack the weight on me. He can take it off me. I have a secret weapon with Sam Calavita, I'm telling you. First time I showed up, I knew it was going to be hard. Like everyone was telling me, oh, he's like, you go hard. Like I've never gone as hard as this guy pushes me ever in my life. From all the years of me practicing or competing.
The brains behind TJ's weight cut was his strength and conditioning coach, nutritionist and all-round performance guru Sam Calavita. A former mathematics teacher, Sam Calavita had always been promoted by TJ as an incredibly knowledgeable and detailed coach.
This is what's unusual about this. Normally, if you would hire somebody, you would hire like a George Lockhart or someone like that, Mike Dolce, and then you'd hire them almost specifically just for the weight cut and some nutrition advice. He's training you physically as well.
He's telling me my low base, so my long distance running or my fasted low base. He does everything. My strength conditioning, my nutrition. They make my meals. They do all my meal prep. He's telling me how much low base I need to do per week, either morning or night. He's telling me when I should train. Everything is completely mapped out. There's no guesswork in it. There's nothing. He's telling me everything. He's listening to my heart rate when I'm sleeping, my heart rate variabilities. He's telling me what supplements to take, all of it, everything.
When reviewing TJ's programming from Coach Cal, some of his approaches do make sense.
And how does he schedule the training sessions? How does he know what to have you do and when?
Off of our time frame of when we want to peak, off of my heart rate variability and how my body's reacting to our training. Because maybe I sparred and I did mitts too hard with Dwayne, so I wake up the next morning and he realizes, oh, we got to pull back today. So he'll schedule. Our schedules will change. We have a schedule from the beginning. So say I'm 12 weeks out. All right, this is our plan. This is what we're gonna do. But then maybe I get sick. Or maybe I trained too hard with Dwayne the day before, and so he'll realize, all right, this next day let's go a little bit easier.
However, there is a lot of pseudoscience in what Coach Cal promotes.
I have an infrared sauna. I do red light therapy that I stand in front of it for a certain amount of time to not only increase my testosterone, but to help recovery in my mitochondria, my cells, and flush my body out.
And true hydration is really not drinking water. Or you'll see drinking Gatorade or things like that. It's actually done through a process called the fulfillment of exclusionary zone water. And exclusionary zone water is known as the fourth state of water. And so the really neat part about exclusionary zone water is this form of water actually begins to become structured within your cells. And when it does, it begins to coalesce, which is kind of fit together and vibrate. It forces toxicities out of your cells, and then when exposed to certain light waves, it literally makes the charge of the water molecule negatively charged, which is thereby forming a battery within each of your millions and trillions of cells in your body. That's pretty amazing.
This is one of the key issues with working with a single person who claims expertise in a variety of areas. There is no such thing. Sam Calavita may be an extremely knowledgeable person in the discipline that he's been trained in, which is mathematics. However, many intelligent people have somewhat of a superiority complex when they believe they have the ability to understand and have expertise in all areas. This is one of the major signs of a snake oil salesman, making sensational claims that their customers or athletes repeat. I'm not trying to say all of what Coach Cal says is nonsense, but a lot of what he says is not factually correct correct, and he doesn't have evidence to back up his practices or statements. This is a classic case of someone who gets his info from non-peer-reviewed sources or books, not research. A telltale sign of someone with a surface-level understanding of nutrition. Another potential sign of a quack is someone that sells valueless or fraudulent products. Sam Calavita sells his own line of supplements, and the scientific evidence surrounding many of those products he sells is ropey at best. However, the asinine part of selling these supplements is that they are not batch tested. Batch testing and enrollment into specific drug testing programs like Informed Sport or NSF Certified for Sport is a bare minimum for any supplement brand wanting to work with high-performance athletes. Contamination of supplements is a huge issue for drug-tested athletes.
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Never got a clue.
The thing you got to be real careful with, is supplements. We've had instances of just, vitamin C, creatine, having steroids and other things in it in very, very small amounts.
Evidence suggests that between 15 and 40% of supplements globally are contaminated with prohibited substances, and approximately 1 in 4 failed drug tests can be due to contaminated supplements. For an alleged nutrition expert to sell potentially high-risk supplements like this and use them with drug-tested athletes is completely fraudulent. Taking this contamination risk into account, I thought TJ was an extremely high risk for failing a drug test due to this now infamous picture. A couple of these products are batch tested, however the vast majority are not. There were 37 supplements that TJ was routinely taking before this fight. Even if we take the low end of the contamination risk from the research, odds are that he has 5 supplements on the table that contain banned substances. Although TJ never failed for a contaminated supplement, he did for something a lot more serious.
TJ Dillashaw, by his own admission, had come out and said he had failed a drug test and was being suspended by both USADA and the New York State Athletic Commission. This is dating back to his fight against Henry Cejudo back in January for the Flyweight title.
There's something more to it for this to happen the way it happened, for him to give up his title and for him to walk away. And if it was a tainted supplement, no, he wouldn't have walked away.
You don't know what we're talking about. TJ Dillashaw tested positive for injectable EPO, which is a serious performance-enhancing substance.
Now, there's disgusting is what it is. No, you can't just say it's very bad. It's downright disgusting. I mean, for his legacy, it's devastating. It's what legacy? Yeah. What fucking legacy? What would we don't know what he could have done. Maybe that slight edge was because he's a fucking cheater.
Was I surprised? I wouldn't have been surprised if he did or he didn't test dirty, to be honest. You hear them say that we've been saying this, Urife, but I'm surprised he didn't get caught earlier. Yeah. Cody, I'm surprised he didn't get caught earlier.
There's no chance of any of this tainted supplement bullshit. He 100% has been caught red-handed taking performance-enhancing drugs.
I tested positive for erythropoietin. I was taking an anemia medication called Procrit. Knew I wasn't allowed to take it, and that's your answer.
EPO, or erythropoietin, is one of the substances synonymous with doping in sport.
So breaking news now on Lance Armstrong. The global governing body of cycling has just announced moments ago it will ban Armstrong for life and strip him of his 7 tour titles.
Officially stripping Armstrong, banning him for life, saying, quote, "There is no place in cycling for Lance Armstrong."
By admitting he used performance-enhancing drugs to win every single one of his 7 Tour de France titles.
UCI will ban Lance Armstrong from cycling, and UCI will strip him of his 7 Tour de France titles. Lance Armstrong has no place in cycling.
Yes or no? Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Yes or no? Was one of those banned substances EPO?
Yes.
EPO is a naturally occurring hormone produced by the kidneys to stimulate cells in bone marrow to produce red blood cells. These red blood cells carry oxygen around the body. Clinically, EPO is used to treat patients with kidney disease or renal failure as their natural production of EPO is impaired. It's also been used in cases of anemia, which is common in cancer patients, to increase red blood cell count. As you can imagine, there could be significant performance benefits to using EPO for athletes. There is approximately between 8 and 12% improvement in endurance performance with EPO. At a basic level, more red blood cells equals more oxygen to working muscles, which can delay the onset of fatigue and hence increase endurance performance. Therefore, the use of EPO, or agents affecting the production of red blood cells, is prohibited under the WADA code. So how did TJ get caught? The detection of EPO through anti-doping testing is primarily dictated by the athlete biological passport. The ABP measures selected biological variables longitudinally over an athlete's career. These biological variables include testing blood for hematological markers including hemoglobin, hematocrit and red blood cell counts, and also testing urine for detecting androgenic steroids by assessing concentrations of testosterone, epitestosterone and other hormones. An athlete's collection over time will be used to generate their individual reference ranges. If results come back that are outside the normal reference ranges, then this flag is evaluated by 3 independent ABP experts. This expert review is key as there are factors such as training load, environmental factors and hydration that can affect these numbers outside of doping. If warranted, specific tests are then undertaken to investigate whether EPO has been utilized. This next point is really crucial. These tests for detecting EPO are not used in all samples.
Here's the thing. Well, we have to, this is something that I know. EPO is not always tested for.
Correct.
And
did you see Dana?
What'd he say?
Because USADA is expensive as fuck. He goes, hold on. You guys aren't, he didn't know. He goes, you guys aren't tested for EPO every time. We pay this much money for you numbnuts to show up guys at 3 a.m. and test them. And you're not testing every time and we pay this much. He goes, I had no idea.
Yeah.
To illustrate this point, TJ had previously passed USADA tests whilst using EPO. Only after reanalyzing his previous samples after failing the in-competition test, EPO was detected. Anti-doping has a specific budget and there simply isn't enough money to test for everything all of the time. Hence the introduction of the cheaper athlete biological passport to indicate if further testing is required. There is an issue with the implementation of the ABP, especially for combat sports athletes. Combat sports athletes often undergo chronic training loads, calorie restriction and dehydration, all of which can confound ABP data. Therefore, an MMA athlete's individual reference range can be highly variable. For example, a study published in 2020 found that during the final 2 days of weight cutting in judo athletes, hemoglobin and hematocrit levels significantly increased. This is due to plasma volume reducing through dehydration, which temporarily increases the concentration of red blood cells. Despite these issues, reference ranges for some ABP biomarkers have been developed for elite athletes. Specifically, their reference range for hematocrit is between 38.8 and 49.6%. Therefore, the average hematocrit for elite athletes is 44.2. This was developed from data containing 739 athletes, 149 of which were combat sports athletes. Let's take this in the context of TJ's claims. 46 was his pre-fight hematocrit.
I never took my body to anything that was unnormal. Like I said, I walk around about a 45. The highest I ever got my hematocrit back to was 46. You know, it wasn't like I was above unnatural levels. The highest a human body can even go naturally is 50.
His hematocrit went down to the high 30s and then back up to the mid 40s.
Oh yeah, man, I was coming back to normal. You know, I got my hematocrit was down in the high 30s and I was coming back to mid 40s, which your hematocrit is your red blood cell ratio.
If what TJ says was true, he only used EPO to get back up to the mid-40s, well within his claimed normal range, and well within the wider athletic reference ranges. So why would USADA have flagged him? Well, hematocrit is not the only indicator of EPO use. There are also other markers, one of which could have been naturally elevated or depressed, which TJ did not mention. TJ is claiming he used EPO to recover his normal range. but he might not be being totally transparent. So that leaves us with 3 primary reasons why he got caught. Number 1, TJ was being deceptive in these interviews and he was dosing up to supraphysiological levels, which is possible but unlikely due to the previously passed tests. Number 2, he cycled off going into the fight, which led to an irregular finding through the athlete biological passport. For example, serum EPO is unnaturally depressed when cycling off, but the athlete biological passport is not the only factor that can instigate a specific USADA investigation. USADA can undertake more extensive sample analysis based on intelligence they receive. So that leaves us with the 3rd potential reason why TJ got caught: snitching. TJ had certainly not been exempt from doping allegations before his fight with Cejudo, so could these allegations have prompted USADA's scrutiny on TJ? Looking at the UFC USADA athlete testing database, we see some really interesting data. Let's take a look at TJ's USADA test history. USADA was implemented in the UFC midway through 2015, so we aren't going to count the single test that TJ had that year in Q4. So we're going to look at the data from the first full year of USADA testing through to when TJ tested positive in Q1 of 2019. Testing frequency is quite consistent for 2016 and Q1 of 2017, but TJ then starts to be tested a lot more from Q2 of 2017, and this increased testing frequency remains until he tests positive for EPO. What could have stimulated this increased testing frequency? Garbrandt and Dillashaw were slated to face each other as coaches in the Ultimate Fighter Redemption in January of 2017. In April of 2017, it was formally announced that Dillashaw would face Cody Garbrandt for the bantamweight title in November later that year, after the initial date of July had to be scratched due to an injury to Garbrandt. In the lead up to their fight, former teammate of Dillashaw, Chris Holdsworth, insinuated that TJ wasn't as clean as his USADA testing showed.
You know, when he was getting ready for Brow, and then it comes to clear that I hear he's on some special supplements and stuff.
And when you say special supplements, you mean steroids?
You're a smart guy, Ariel. You know, you guys can put 2 and 2 together, but, you know.
In the pre-fight press conference, Garbrandt was outspoken about TJ's PED usage.
One of the accusations made at TJ was the fact that he'd taken some special supplements.
Oh yeah, the guy's on everything.
Yeah.
He's on everything.
TJ?
Yeah, I'm on everything. They test me every day, so I'm on everything.
You're the one that showed everyone how to do it on Team Alpha Male.
So yeah, I'm the one that's now bringing it in. Yeah.
Look at him. He has nothing to say.
Taking these accusations into account, plus the increased testing data, it's not out of the question to assume that TJ was subject to more rigorous testing because of the accusations from former teammates. This could have led USADA to not only test TJ more, but also to employ specific testing methods based on the intelligence that they received, which subsequently could have led him to testing positive for EPO in January. Let's also compare TJ's testing history to Garbrandt's over the same period. TJ was not only tested more times, but the frequency of testing increased for TJ leading up to the fight, whereas it decreased for Garbrandt over the same period. So it certainly seems like there is something going on here. These allegations from former teammates certainly suggest that TJ was using PEDs throughout his career, but is there any substance to these claims? EPO is one of the substances that is notoriously difficult to detect for a variety of reasons. As I've mentioned previously, there is a lot of leeway in an athlete's individual reference range, especially for combat sports athletes. Athletes could quite easily microdose EPO and increase their hematocrit within their reference range, which wouldn't flag up on the athlete biological passport. When microdosing, the half-life of recombinant EPO is only a few hours, so the detection window is small. Plus, there are compounds called plasma volume expanding agents, such as glycerol, that can temporarily increase plasma volume and therefore decrease or mask any potential elevated red blood cell markers. Interestingly, glycerol was removed from the WADA ban list in 2018 due to a lack of evidence of it being able to significantly mask EPO use, but this may not hold true for microdosing EPO. Even without a masking agent, there are issues with microdosing detection. In fact, for normal therapeutic doses of EPO, only 50% of samples get detected during testing. When microdosing, less than 25% of samples get detected. It's not out of the question that TJ had historically historically used EPO. In fact, research indicates that just under 1/3 of MMA athletes would use an illegal, undetectable PED if it guaranteed them winning the UFC championship. But let's assume TJ only used it this one time due to his claims of anemia. Was TJ really anemic? Well, no objective data has been shared, so we can only make assumptions based on reported word and claims. TJ's main symptoms were tiredness and general lethargic behavior, which are indicators of anemia. But is this specific to anemia, or is it just low energy availability? Low calorie diets can increase risk of anemia. This is known in the research as relative energy deficiency, or REDS, and overtraining syndrome, essentially chronic underfueling. Given TJ's dietary intake and excessive training load, relative energy deficiency and therefore risk of anemia would have been high, so there is potentially justification for use as EPO as a medication in this circumstance. Either way, if TJ used a prohibited medication or had been doping throughout his career, one big question is raised. Did his team know?
And it was, I think, the day before or a couple of days before the news broke. He never told me personally or like I didn't know what was going on.
Sam Calavita got so much backlash because obviously he's my strength conditioning coach. He does all this testing on me, all this shit. I wasn't gonna bring this to him. This is something that I decided to do on my own. You know, I trusted in the wrong people.
I find it very hard to believe that none of TJ's coaches knew about his use of EPO, especially Sam Calavita. TJ repeatedly stated the details that Calavita would go into around his programming, recovery, nutrition, and biomarkers.
Sam would tell me like what to go to bed at. He knew what I was going to wake up at. He tells me the water loading I'm doing, the amount of electrolytes I'm taking in, the amount of food I'm eating, and so he knows exactly what my body's going to wake up and do. He's been tracking it for not 2 years now.
Calavita released this statement after TJ tested positive. I'm not going to read it because personally I find it nauseating and completely ludicrous. Giving Calavita an extremely generous benefit of the doubt when it comes to the doping side of things, he would have known that TJ was anemic, and if he was educated sufficiently in nutrition, he would have been able to identify the symptoms of relative energy deficiency. This then brings up a wider issue in MMA, which is the conflict of interest for coaches. Coaches often have invested interest in the outcome of their athletes' fights. Many coaches will seek to indirectly benefit from working with their athletes, such as generating more income through their gym memberships or product sales. In most cases, coaches have direct financial relationships to their athletes, which are often percentage-based. If a fighter pulls out of a fight due to an injury or other health-related issue, the coach won't get paid. Therefore, coaches are highly incentivized to push their athletes through to competition, even if they might not be in a fit state to do so. Due to the psychological profiles of MMA athletes, many fighters would not want to pull out of a fight. However, coaches and trainers have a duty of care to their athletes. If they see an athlete in this compromised position, they should not push them through to fight, even if they might have an invested interest. It's not ethical, and they are putting their fighters at significant risk, or they're pushing them forward into situations they may not fully recover from, either physically, psychologically, or professionally. So where does this leave TJ?
He, lost 2 years in the prime of his career. He's going to have to compete and live the rest of his life with this stigma.
Everyone I fight, anyone that's like, I've tainted my legacy.
It taints his legacy. It just does. There's no way around it.
And a bit surprising was TJ Dillashaw unexpectedly retired last night.
But I do believe his history, right, his history with performance enhancement drugs makes this conversation even more valid. How does the PED talk or the PED cloud hang over TJ Dillashaw being counted as one of the greatest to ever do it at bantamweight?
And the doctor just kind of like a raw conversation with me. He's like, hey man, it's time to make a decision. This is your third shoulder surgery in the last 3 years, your shoulders, a lot of water under the bridge. It just got me like thinking about life and my son and being able to like actually be active with him and swing a golf club with him and just live life outside of fighting,
TJ was obviously dealing with some significant shoulder issues which would have factored into his retirement. As others have stated, it seems a shame that such a respected and impressive career fell into disrepute. One of the best bantamweight fighters in history with a now permanently stained legacy, and one that just seemed to fizzle out in the end due to injury. A really key point to consider is that doping didn't just affect TJ personally, it also affected those around him.
I was not happy about the situation or the decision that TJ had made. I was also concerned truly that he was in that place where he felt he needed to do what he did. And as a first-time parent, my thoughts quickly turned to Bronson and how this would maybe affect him down the road. I'm trying to raise a son with a strong moral compass and high self-esteem, and a huge portion of my concern was around him.
Was it all worth it? Could TJ's legacy have been completely different if he didn't embark on that weight cut? Or if he had the right people around him guiding him towards making the right decisions? Unfortunately, we'll never know.